Robert Harrison stood in front of the mirror, studying the growth on his neck. It had swollen again, purple, pulsating, and angry looking under the skin. He tucked it beneath his scarf and muttered the old lie. What you don't know can't hurt you. His medicine bottles told a different story, emptied, faded, and long overdue for refills. The apartment, stale and cluttered, hadn't changed in years. Framed medals from Korea sat untouched, Eleanor's photographs frozen in time. The doorbell rang. Robert knew who it was before opening it. "Dad, I told you I'm coming, whether you like it or not," James said, stepping in with his overnight bag. His concern was etched in every word, every glance. "You look like hell," James said flatly. "Good to see you too," Robert muttered. James took in the state of the apartment: stacked papers, untouched dishes, empty cabinets. The fridge was practically a tomb. His father's pride had clearly lasted longer than his groceries. "Have you seen a doctor about that thing on your neck?" "It's nothing," Robert snapped. James wasn't buying it. In the bathroom, he found half-empty prescription bottles and urgent refill notices. He returned holding one out. "So, how long have you been bleeding?" Robert's silence was answer enough. When James confronted him again, Robert tried to stand, only to stumble into his son's arms. They froze in that awkward embrace, two men who hadn't hugged in years. "You need help. I don't want yours." "She would have wanted you to let me help." James mentioned his mother Eleanor and immediately regretted it. Robert's voice cracked. "Leave her out of this." But it was too late. She lingered like a ghost between them. Flashback. 1985 Lake Winnipegosis shimmered under the summer sun. Robert patiently guided a young James on how to fish. "You've got to feel the fish, not fight it," he said, large hands gently adjusting the boy's grip. James beamed when the line tugged. His father's rare smile was a prize more valuable than any catch. But behind those moments were secrets, diagnoses whispered in kitchens, doctor visits marked in quiet dread. Eleanor had breast cancer. Stage 3. James remembered the tension in their house, the way his father carried himself like a man dragging the weight of the world behind him. When Eleanor's cancer briefly went into remission, Robert remained vigilant. Every movement she made, he noticed. Every breath she took, he feared might be her last. Then came the blowout. James had announced he wanted to attend art school in New York. Robert exploded. "Art? You think that's a future? The military gave me structure. It gave me a life." James fired back. "And it made you miserable." "I want more than that." Eleanor tried to mediate, but her voice was frail, thinner than it had been in weeks. The cancer had returned. This time, it wouldn't leave quietly. James deferred college. Robert sold everything he could to pay for treatments, his prized boat, even his father's watch. But no sacrifice bought her more time. The day she died, Robert sat beside her body, rigid and unreadable. James wept. Robert didn't. "You think I don't feel this?" Robert had whispered at the funeral. "Someone has to stay strong." It was the start of a silence that lasted years. Back in the present, Berbert now lay dozing in his chair, breathing ragged. James looked around the apartment again and discovered the truth buried beneath military. Order piles of unpaid medical bills, oncology letterheads, and a terrible realization. His father was dying and hadn't told anyone. He confronted Robert again. "Let me see it, please." With great reluctance, Robert unwrapped his scarf. The mass was grotesque, angry veins, swollen flesh, throbbing with every heartbeat. "Jesus, Dad, why didn't you tell me?" Robert shrugged. "What good would it do? Your mother died after years of treatment. I won't do that again. Not to you, not to myself." When Robert collapsed moments later, clutching his chest, James caught him just in time. "No ambulance," Robert gasped. "Too expensive." "Then I'm driving." Every stare felt like a war. James helped his father into the car and sped toward Boston Memorial. Robert winced with every bump, the growth on his neck pulsing faster. At the hospital, nurses took one look and rushed him in. Doctors swarmed. James answered questions between panic and denial. He heard the word aneurysm and felt the floor disappear beneath him. A vascular surgeon appeared. Dr. Miller. It's one of the largest carotid aneurysms we've seen. We're prepping him for emergency surgery. As Robert was wheeled away, James's phone buzzed. A call from a doctor, Dr. Kaufman. Your father missed a follow-up. We've been treating him for suspected pancreatic cancer, but he's been unwilling to proceed. James stared at the OR doors, stunned. Pancreatic cancer, and he never said a word. Robert's surgery had barely begun when Dr. Miller returned to the waiting area. There's a complication, she said. Your father is refusing the procedure. He woke up and demanded to be discharged. James blinked. He's refusing life-saving surgery. He's citing his cancer diagnosis. He says it's pointless. James held up the journal he'd found in Robert's overnight bag. I know about the cancer now. He's convinced he's dying already, so why spend money just to suffer longer? Dr. Miller nodded grimly. We're trying to determine if his refusal is based on sound judgment or depression. We've called the hospital ethics team. I don't care what it takes, James said. Do it. He can hate me late. At least he'll be alive to do it. While the staff deliberated, James returned to his father's bedside. Robert looked frail now, his defiance dulled by fatigue. The massive growth on his neck throbbed beneath surgical lights, a grotesque reminder of time running out. I found your journal, James said. I know everything. Robert didn't flinch. Didn't want you carrying it like I did with your mother. You kept it all in, James said. But that's not strength, Dad. That's fear. I was coming to see you, Robert admitted, voice rasping. One last time. Say goodbye. See your kids. Then don't quit now. Not when we still have that chance. Robert fell silent, his resistance flickering. James gripped his hand. They're ready to operate. Please don't rob us of what little time we might have. Just then, Dr. Miller returned with two others. Mr. Harrison, the administrator began. Given the urgency and psychiatric concerns, we're proceeding with emergency surgery under hospital policy. This is to preserve your life. You can't force me. I asked them to, James cut in. Robert's eyes narrowed. You had no right. No, James said. But I have a reason, Emma and RJ. They deserve to know you. Something in Robert's expression softened. The fight drained from his body. As he was wheeled away, he gripped James's hand. If I don't make it, you will, James insisted. If I don't, no, I was proud, even if I never said it. In the operating room, surgeons examined the aneurysm, massive, unstable, and far more complex than imaging had shown. Dr. Okonkwo, the vascular lead, called it one of the largest he'd seen in decades. One mistake could mean catastrophic rupture. Meanwhile, in the waiting room, James paced. Hours passed. He called his wife Laura, in Chicago, and told her everything. The cancer, the surgery, the lies his father had told to keep his distance. Do you want me to come? She asked gently. Not yet, James said. But maybe soon. Eventually, Dr. Miller returned. We're placing stents, she said. But the artery has been pushed out of position. It's delicate. We're trying to avoid a stroke. James waited, alone with his memories. He thought of Eleanor, his mother, who had once told him, Your father's different when you're not around, softer. James had rolled his eyes then. Then why can't he be that person with me? Vietnam changed him, she'd said. He doesn't know how to show love to men, only how to endure pain. James hadn't understood that then, but now, watching doctors battle for Robert's life, he saw her wisdom too late. Back in the OR, the team worked in silence. Suddenly, monitors screamed. Robert's blood pressure plummeted. He's bleeding internally, Dr. Okonkwo said. Suction. Find the tear? Nurses scrambled. The aneurysm wall had thinned to near transparency. One wrong move could end everything, even unconscious. Robert's mind was elsewhere, drifting back to Da Nang, 1968. In a field hospital, he was 21, pressing down on a bleeding soldier's throat with shaking hands. No medics available, just his fear and duty. "Stay with me," he'd told the terrified boy. Even then, Robert had learned a bitter truth. You can't always save the people you love, but you try anyway. By hour 4, the bleeding was controlled. Stents were in place. Robert's vitals were holding. "We got him through," Dr. Miller finally told James, removing her surgical cap. "But it was close. He's stable, for now. In ICU, sedated." James followed her to the recovery unit. His father lay connected to machines, unrecognizable, pale, surrounded by tubes. The growth on his neck was bandaged, the danger tamed for now. "Talk to him," the nurse suggested. "Sometimes they hear." So James did. "I read your journal, Dad. I know about the letters from Mom. I know you are coming next week. I know you are trying, in your own way." The machines answered with cold, clinical beeps. "I'm sorry I never knew you were proud. I would have done things differently if I had." Later, Dr. Okonkwo stopped by. "He's not out of danger. The aneurysm repair was successful, but there's still risk stroke, swelling, cardiac, stress. Will he wake up? Too early to tell." "Alone," James whispered. "Please don't leave me like this." We just started talking. As the hours dragged on in the ICU, James never left Robert's bedside. The machines clicked and hummed. Nurses moved in and out like quiet ghosts. Robert lay still, the ventilator rising and falling, breathing for him. Then, a flicker, his fingers twitched. Dr. Miller returned, just in time to witness it. "We're reducing sedation," she explained. "Let's see if he can breathe on his own." As they tested Robert's breathing, his eyes fluttered open, but aware. James stepped closer. "Dad, can you hear me?" A weak squeeze of the hand, eyes locking onto his son's. Dr. Miller spoke calmly. "Robert, you've had surgery. You're in the ICU. You're stable, but on a ventilator. If you understand, squeeze once." He did. James leaned closer. "You're still here, Dad." Robert tried to speak, but the tube prevented it. His expression, though, was full of emotions, something between relief and disbelief. The doctors prepared to slowly remove the ventilator, timing it carefully. Just as James exhaled with cautious hope, alarms erupted. Flatline code blue. ICU room 37. The room flooded with medical staff. Dr. Miller pushed James aside. "VFib," a nurse shouted. "No pulse." Robert's body jolted under the defibrillator. James watched in horror as his father's body convulsed, limp, and still again. He was losing him again. Clear. Another shock. A pause. The faintest beep returned on the monitor. "We've got a rhythm." James slumped against the wall, shaking. Dr. Miller approached him once things stabilized. His heart stopped. Ventricular fibrillation. "We got him back, but we need to be cautious now. He'll remain sedated for a while." James could barely process the news. "And the cancer?" he asked. "You mentioned something about the biopsy?" "Yes," she said. "We tested tissue from the aneurysm. There's no sign of cancer. In fact, we're not convinced he has it." James blinked. "What?" Dr. Miller nodded. "We're investigating autoimmune pancreatitis. It mimics pancreatic cancer on scans, but is often treatable with steroids." It hit James like a punch. So all of this, the collapse, the refusal to get help, the goodbye letter might have been based on a misdiagnosis, she finished. Robert had accepted a death sentence that wasn't even real. In the quiet that followed, James called Laura, his wife. "They think the cancer might not be real," he told her. "What? That's good, isn't it? I don't even know what it is." I feel like we've lived in a lie for months." James sat with his father for hours, replaying old moments in his mind, the silence, the walls between them, the way Robert never cried when Eleanor died, never praised, never forgave. Had it all stemmed from fear? From his father's inability to be vulnerable? Later that evening, James went back to the hotel, across from the hospital. While unpacking Robert's journal, a folded note slipped out. It was addressed to him. "Jimmy, if you're reading this, I'm probably gone. There are things a man should say while he has the chance. But some of us aren't built that way. Your mother always said I'd rather eat nails than talk about feelings. She wasn't wrong. Keeping Eleanor's letters from you was unforgivable. There in the desk, bottom drawer. She wrote every week during your first year in New York. I never mailed them. Why? Because I thought they'd pull you further away. I was proud of you, son. Afraid, but proud. The art, the move, the life, I didn't understand it. But that doesn't mean it was wrong. I didn't know how to raise a son different from myself. Eleanor was the bridge between us, and when she died, I didn't know how to cross the gap. I'm not asking for forgiveness. Just wanted you to know the failure was mine, never yours. Tell the kids about their grandmother. She was the best of us." Dad James read the letter 3 times. It wasn't perfect. It didn't heal every wound, but it was real. A lifeline, thrown too late but still thrown by morning. Robert was showing signs of consciousness again. A nurse gave James an update. "Vitals are steady. No neurological damage. If things hold, we'll try to wean him off the ventilator today." Dr. Miller returned. "He's stronger than we expected." And hours later, with oxygen support still in place, Robert opened his eyes and focused fully on James for the first time since the collapse. "You made it," James whispered. Robert struggled to speak. His voice was raw and hoarse. "Bad timing. Sorry." James laughed despite himself. "You think?" They both smiled, tentative, tired, but genuine. Robert's voice was still weak. But James understood every word. "You kept the photo," James said, holding up the old graduation picture he'd found in Robert's wallet. "All these years." Robert blinked slowly. "Never left me." They sat in silence. No more confessions were needed. The letter had done most of the heavy lifting. But in that ICU room surrounded by machines and monitors, they had finally become father and son again. 6 months later, Lake Winnipegauk's October air was crisp. Red and gold leaves danced along the surface of the lake. Robert sat on the dock with a fishing pole in hand, a knit cap on his head, and a scar barely visible beneath his collar. "Grandpa Fish, look at this rock," Emma yelled, skipping toward him with a pebble in hand. Robert chuckled. "Flat enough for 5 skips, maybe 6 if you've got the wrist for it." James stood back, watching his daughter skip the stone. Robert gave her a rare thumbs up. The old soldier was still quiet, but no longer distant. The transformation had surprised everyone, including Robert himself. After leaving the hospital, he resisted the idea of living with James and Laura. "I'm not moving into your basement. Like some burden," he'd grumbled. James just replied, "We don't have a basement. You'd get the guest room. Morning sun, view of Laura's garden, your call." It wasn't James's words that persuaded him. It was the children's cards, hand-drawn, get well soon pictures from Emma and RJ. Fish with googly eyes and a fishing boat armed with rocket launchers broke through his defenses in a way logic never could. Maybe the kids could. "Use a grandfather," he'd mumbled the next day. "At least until I'm back on my feet." That maybe turned into weeks, then months. At first, Robert's presence in the house felt awkward. He was still guarded, still stiff. But gradually, something shifted. He began showing Emma how to tie fishing knots using shoelaces. He let RJ explain Pokemon for 20 minutes straight, and actually asked questions afterward. James watched it unfold like someone witnessing a miracle in slow motion. "You're good with them?" he told Robert one evening. Robert shrugged, trying to do better this time around. The autoimmune diagnosis turned out to be accurate. With treatment, Robert's strength returned steadily. He gained weight. The mass in his neck never came back. The heart scare had left him shaken, but also grateful for time he hadn't expected. One day, while organizing his things, Robert found Eleanor's old letters. James read every one. They were filled with love, pride, and quiet encouragement. Eleanor had seen what neither father nor son could say aloud. In many ways, those letters filled the gaps left by decades of silence. Now, sitting on the dock, James joined Robert beside the tackle box. "I haven't held a fishing rod since I was 10, James said, casting clumsily. Robert smirked. "Still, can't cast straight." James bumped him gently with his shoulder. "Still can't compliment your own son." Robert glanced at him, and then, in his usual gruff tone, said, "You turned out all right." That was all he needed to say. James smiled. "Thanks, Dad." They watched the lake in silence, the sun painting the surface gold. Behind them, Emma shouted, "I beat RJ5 skips." Robert nodded. "Told you." They cast their lines again. There was still time left. Time to rebuild. Time to forgive. Time to fish. And maybe finally time to just be a family.